those who cheated on their partners and left them for someone else. What's your story behind it? Story 1. My dad's coworker, who we'll just call Jack, cheated on his wife. He comes from a religious family and the marriage was arranged between his and his wife's parents. While the wife was fully involved in the marriage, Jack despised the idea of his parents choosing who he will wed. He couldn't leave because his wife was against divorce, claiming it would make her look bad. But what finally opened his eyes was when his parents and in-laws started demanding he have kids, and it made him realize that they were completely toxic and terrible. He cheated on his wife as a way for her to divorce him and moved across the country to where he lives now. 15 years later and 3 kids with his new wife who he is happily married to, he doesn't regret a thing. Story 2. I was in a 4-year relationship, engaged for 3 years with someone who wanted to completely control me but give nothing to the relationship, never listened when I voiced my unhappiness, or promised the world and never delivered. I tried to leave a few times, and had put on the tears and the guilt, say things like everyone always left him. Threatened to end himself. Was also the kind of dude that hardly ever wanted physical intimacy, which left me feeling completely ugly. But then when we did want it, he'd force it even if I didn't want it. He controlled me mentally, emotionally, physically and financially. I went downstage for 3 weeks to visit my family. I begged him to come, even offering to pay for everything. He flat-put refused, saying he hated the city and my family. I was there over Christmas and New Year's, and ended up going to my friend's New Year's party where I met a guy. Immediately disclosed my relationship. We got talking and he was really easy to talk to despite us just meeting. I expressed sadness about how my partner never wanted to do anything and how I wouldn't be getting a New Year's kiss. He said he didn't want to leave me disappointed. That kiss led to a week's affair. We kept meeting up, and it quickly became physical. I decided regardless what happened with me and the new guy, my engagement was done. I wasn't in love with him. When I eventually went back home, I broke up with him, told him why. He beat me and screamed at me, calling me every name he could. I get it, I deserved it, we both sucked. I eventually married my affair partner, and we're still together and very strong. 10 years later, we have a kid, no regrets. I've never strayed from him because he actually gives about me. Story 3. He cheated first, then we agreed to an open relationship. Then he broke the rules of the open relationship 100x times, and continued basically cheating. I only stayed because I was a broke college student who couldn't afford rent alone. Then Prince Charming randomly walked into my life. Meeting up after work turned into dinner, drinks, and the next day I broke up with my ex. I've been married to Prince Charming for 3 years now. Story 4. I started feeling betrayed. They would come into my life and then disappear for long periods of time. I felt hungry for a special kind of taste that only they could provide me with. One day I had enough and I said, you know what, I'm done. I just went into the store and got ingredients to make the McRib at home. Story 5. This is my biggest regret in life. I married my childhood girlfriend at 19, bought a cabin and fixed it up, then a small brick house that was in the family. I never really dated anyone else and her family was very racist, Southern Baptist in the strongest sense. She'd leave me on the weekends after I worked 56-hour weeks, so I never spent much time with her during our brief marriage. Aside from this very insignificant issue, there was nothing terribly wrong. I was young and stupid at 23, met someone on a video game who was also married. Ended up meeting, fell for each other, and both marriages fell apart when it was found out. Had a couple kids together, were together 10 years then. She cheated on me with a couple of guys, the main being someone she met in another MMO. I lived with so much guilt and regret for hurting someone. It's still an issue. I like to think I got what I deserved because it hurt so badly losing my family due to her affair. I cry myself to sleep on the floor every night for months. I like to think my first wife that I hurt did the same and I was suffering as she did, as I deserved. Some people cheat and continue to cheat through their lives. For me, it's a lesson I was given and will never do again. No matter what, I take being boiled in oil over hurting someone like that again. If any of you are thinking about doing it, don't. It's not worth the damage to their soul or yours. Story 6. I've been on both sides, and honestly, it's complicated. I was unhappy in my relationship but didn't know how to communicate it at the time. I met someone else, and it felt like a spark I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't right, and looking back, I regret not being more honest and just ending things properly before starting something new. Story 7. I've cheated on 2 partners. First time I was 21, he was abusive, and when I tried to leave, he'd tell me he'd kill himself and it would be on me for the rest of my life. Found someone who I could turn to when I was being abused. I never felt guilty for what I did because he was so awful to me. Second time I actually still feel terrible for. He never found out, but he just would not do anything with me. All he wanted to do was play video games and drink. I couldn't get him to go places with me, so I started doing everything alone. We slept in opposite rooms. I worked overnights and he would scream at his video games all during the day when I was trying to sleep, even when I asked him not to. Then if I made a single noise in the middle of the night on my days off, it was an issue. He'd wake me up after I worked 3 12-hour shifts to ask if I was going to cook dinner for him while he gamed and got drunk. He, too, would threaten to kill himself if I left. It got to the point where I saw no point in even being alive anymore because I was so depressed. Found someone who gave me attention. Eventually we did her back together, but the same kept happening. Didn't cheat on him again, but I eventually gave him the option for us to do couples therapy, or I was leaving, and he refused therapy. Story 8. Notice how almost everyone who admits they cheated still find a way to make the other partner sound like they were the bad guy. Funny how that always happens. Story 9. I hate cheating, but I really think some people should not be going into this thread if they don't want to read the story behind why someone cheated. The question is, what's your story behind it? People who are telling their story are doing just that. This isn't Catholic confession, and we are not here to demand anyone atone for their sins to our satisfaction. We're here to read the answers to this question. Again, I hate cheating, lying, and betrayal. Nobody loves being betrayed. If you have been betrayed and it's still raw, you should take care of your soul by scrolling by and not reading. Story 10. I hate this thread. It's wild how every single comment is the same. He was abusive, but I met my Prince Charming, so I cheated, but I don't regret it. Like I expected one or two of those stories. But almost every one, come on. Story 11. She cheated on me. I found out when one of her friends told me about it. I didn't let on I knew, stayed with her for a few weeks. Then I cheated on her for revenge, told her immediately and then broke up with her. It did absolutely nothing for me and I regret ever doing it. I wish I had just kept the moral high ground. Story 12. Not me but my mom. He cheated first, multiple times, with dudes. He's a narcissistic, so I'm glad he sort of got his comeuppance in that way. Also, I wouldn't have been born ill. Does it justify it? I'm not sure and I don't care regardless. Him for what he put my mom through. I will never respect a cheater. And a lot of people here are making excuses for their BS. Story 13. PTSD-fueled self-destructive behavior. Got into the rave scene. Cocaine, MDMA and ketamine accelerated the issue. Stuck mine crazy and fell into drug-induced infatuation. That didn't work out, obviously, but I separated from my partner and we lived apart for about a year. We still saw each other though and ended up getting her pregnant, something we had been trying for years. Many years later we are still together, and still working through the damage, but good partners and great parents. Story 14. To be totally honest, it's because I went through a period of time where I was just a bad person. I cheated physically once, although I would say there was a lot of emotional cheating leading up to it. I was young and in university and my high school partner and I never saw each other and I was getting a bunch of attention from this guy. I got a rush out of the secrecy and forbidden aspect of it all, so I just gave in one day when me and this guy were on mushrooms. I felt terrible then, I feel terrible now. I ended my relationship the next day. Turns out he also cheated on me, lol. But I still feel bad and I haven't done it in any relationship since. Cheating is a horrible thing to do and I will always regret doing it. Story 15. My ex would threaten to unalive himself any time I would attempt to leave him. He actually put himself in the hospital at my last attempt. I was miserable. He just kept love bombing me and threatening self-harm to make me stay. I met someone who I clicked with and ended up cheating. Told my ex and he lost his and broke up with me. For a while he proceeded to stalk me and try to love bomb me again to get me back. But I refused him. I think he got the hint that we were never going to be together again when the guy I cheated with and I made it official. We've been together happily for 5 years now. Honestly, I regret cheating, but I felt I had no other choice. If I could go back I would have stayed strong and firm when I tried leaving the first time. Story 16. My ex was physically and emotionally abusive. I was freshly 21 at the time and he was 26. It was my first serious relationship. Before ending things with my ex, I met my now husband, who showed me what real love looked like from the moment we met. This will be our 4th year married, 5 years together total, and we have a beautiful family. I could not be more thankful that my husband came into my life when he did. He is truly my best friend and the supreme love of my life. Story 17. I was 21. I was a dumb, selfish kid. I was fighting with my boyfriend at the time, went away for the weekend, met this other guy and was immediately smitten. I couldn't reach my boyfriend at the time to end it. He was blocking my calls. I hooked up with this other guy, felt soul-crushing guilt, but also a connection that was hard to ignore. Flash forward 14 years. Ex is now a close friend, and other guy is my husband. We've been together ever since. Yeah, weird, regretful on my part. Story 18. This thread has a lot of judgmental folks who have clearly never been in an abusive relationship or dead bedroom marriage, and who naively think leaving these situations is as simple as walking out the door, judging those who found a desperate escape hatch. I get it, cheaters. But there is a fundamental difference between opportunistic cheating and desperation cheating. The former is when you are trying to have your cake and eat it too, some shallow bullshit or addiction. The latter is when you are deep in a hole with no light and long past the point of I should break up with them, but I just don't know how, and then you find a little light. I hope everyone here has the opportunity to remain that naive and have only safe, healthy and satisfying relationships with partners who communicate and cooperate your whole lives. I hope you aren't financially dependent upon someone to the point you can't leave, and you don't have kids with someone you should never have been with. Story 19. My ex-husband and I had a pretty bad relationship for years. We got married young and quick. It was quickly high conflict. I finished school but he never did, lost his job almost immediately after I got out of school and spent most of the next 5 years unemployed. He had health problems and a pretty bad temper, crossing the line into physical abuse on several occasions. We'd separated 3x, but fear had us keep trying again. I was quite overweight and was worried I wouldn't find someone new during our final separation. Our dog died. I was so distraught. I loved that dog. My mom was recovering in my home from a bad injury and my stepdad had dementia and my ex was actually pretty great during it. I convinced myself the 6 months apart was good for us, so we decided to try again and he moved back in. I needed the help and I really needed him to be a good guy, so I convinced myself things could be different. It quickly was back to the same old. We were fighting. He was signing up for more classes. He spent 9 years and about 25K and had never gotten farther than sophomore. Within weeks I was regretting letting him back in. I was 32 and I knew I wanted kids, and I came to the realization if I had kids with him they might be like him, and I was afraid I wouldn't love them. I had nightmares about this. At the same time, there was this great younger guy at my work. I didn't want to go home. He was going through a breakup where she was being difficult about moving out. So we started just hanging out to have drinks, then go two-stepping. I never had the intention of it becoming a connection. I was just enjoying spending time with someone funny and kind. I was attracted to him, but he was 24 and an indirect subordinate, and I was older and overweight, so I didn't entertain the thought. After several weeks, he told me he had feelings for me. My ex was staying up late to study for a test. I later learned he failed while he racked up 12K in credit card debt I didn't know about in camgirls. I told him I'd be home late since he'd be studying, so I went out dancing with what was originally going to be a group from work but ended up just the guy and I. We danced with each other and others, and had several rounds of drinks. It was a lot of fun, and to sober up, we ended up at IHOP after. He held my hands, caressing them gently, and told me he was surprised how soft they were, that he'd imagined they'd be rougher as I'm a horseback rider. I felt the wind knocked out of me. He'd imagined my hands. The night took a turn in the tone. I didn't know what to say. He told me he was falling in love with me and he thought I felt the same, but he didn't want to do anything until I called it quits with my then husband. I didn't confirm because, again, I hadn't given any serious thought. I told him I didn't know what to think. We cashed out, and we went for a 2 a.m. walk at a lake in his neighborhood. At this point my ex was blowing up my phone and I ignored the calls. I told him I needed to think. He pulled me close, put his hands in my hair, and nuzzled in my neck. I hugged him, then got in my truck and drove the 30 minutes home. When I got home I walked out to my horse pasture, gave my horse a hug, and went in to find my then husband sleeping and snoring. I looked at him and felt a wave of disappointment, disgust, and hatred. I was mad at myself for how I had behaved, and I was mad at him for the preceding years. I told the other man the following morning I would talk to my husband and end things the following week after his test for his schooling. I said I didn't want to tell him and upset him given I thought he had been trying. We agreed not to see each other personally until then, though we exchanged hundreds of messages all day and saw each other at work every day. That Thursday my ex failed his test, and that Thursday night I told him I was done. He asked if it was because of the man I'd been spending so much time with. I told him the truth. No, not directly. It was because we hadn't worked in years, but the timing was because yes, I had feelings for someone else. He wanted to know if I had with him. I told him that I had not, which was true, but that I had very strong feelings. My ex blew up fairly for once, and we had an ugly divorce. I got engaged to my now husband about 18 months into our relationship and married at almost 3 years. And am happy, very, very happy. I love him. He is the great love of my life and the best worst thing I ever did. I have support, he's a wonderful father, and we have accomplished a lot as a team. He's never left me hanging. He's never gotten fired or spent money on. He's never hit me. He's never thrown things at me. He's my best friend. Story 20. It was not an honorable moment for me, but I was truly in love with the other person and have been happily together for more than 4 years. We're now engaged. Sometimes love is messy. Story 21. I left my husband for a man I barely knew online. He was full of romantic sweet words, whereas my husband and I barely knew each other anymore. I didn't love the new guy, but I wanted to see where it went, so I broke up with my ex before anything happened. I flew interstate to see this guy, but after 2 trips it was apparent that he was a bumbling embarrassment who had a habit of being the white knight for unhappily married women. He had gross habits like leaving his cat's diarrhea to dry around the house, and didn't wash his hands after the toilet. I broke up with him because he stopped taking his antidepressants and complained that nobody remembered his birthday when he had 20-something well wishes on FB. He was a childish mess. I resolved to be single after that, but then a couple months later, my best friend suggested we date, and now we've been together for 10 years, married for 5. Loving him has been so different to loving my first husband. I feel everything so much more strongly. We still get along fine with my ex, and co-parent well. Story 22. After 8 years together, I found out he was planning how to leave me and take all of our assets after begging me to quit my job and financially rely on him. He was suicidal, addicted to, and claimed my assault was a burden on his sexuality. I reconnected with someone I always liked throughout my childhood, and started having with him. Part of it was out of resentment. Another part of me was just curious about what would feel like with another person, considering he was my first. Either way, it wasn't the right way to go about my marital issues. Within a week of sleeping with the other guy, I asked for a divorce. I didn't pursue anything serious with the guy I cheated with, but cheating made me come to the decision to leave a lot sooner than I would have. Story 23. 10-year relationship, and I feel bad every day. I cheated because I was unhappy. I wasn't perfect either. I voiced it numerous times. Things would get better, but they'd still go back to the usual. I found another woman to confide in and a shoulder to cry on. She also cheated on her partner at the time. We were on and off for 18 months, just FWD style, and then we tried to be a couple, but that was a clusterfuck in itself. COVID hit and I used the excuse of lockdowns not to see her again. Thank we were never living together, currently with someone else, together for 5 years with a baby in tow. I am happy now, but occasionally get flashbacks to what I did, and it turns my day. She didn't deserve it. She's much happier now with someone else, and so am I. Story 24. I cheated on my ex-husband. We should have never gotten married. There was infidelity from the start on his side. Then we got married and I found some repulsive on his phone during our honeymoon. Nearly 40-year-old man hitting on 18-year-olds via Snapchat, a girl we both worked with. After that I fell completely out of love with him and felt trapped. I got close with a coworker who was in an unhappy marriage and we started screwing around. I spiraled after that. The following year was so traumatic. Eventually we separated and then I went down a dark path for a bit and almost ended up in a very similar relationship, but a really good therapist helped me start piecing my life back together, and then I met my now fiancé and I knew that as I wasn't ready for the good thing he had to offer me, so I made myself ready. 3 years later we are engaged. No fighting or infidelity. So much love and stability. And I am just the most grateful woman in the world. Story 25. Why do some of the cheaters replying refuse to be accountable for their wrongdoings? Claiming to be a victim of abuse isn't a justifiable reason for cheating. 2 wrongs don't make a right. I have friends who were abused but did not cheat. They packed up and left. Understand, everyone reacts to abuse differently, but by cheating and still staying with the alleged abuser, what exactly are you expecting to happen? Story 26. I was dating a girl, I'm female, for 2 years. I was never gay or into anything other than dudes before I met her. It just kinda happened and I did love her, but when I met my now husband he was so nice and good-hearted and not your average dickhead guy. Honestly, I was trying to find a way out of that relationship because it was toxic as well. We basically just got drunk all the time, fought, and the relationship was going nowhere. Anyway, my now husband was persistent with me, but not in an aggressive way, if that makes sense. Long story short, I cheated on her with him and we're now together 7 years and expecting our first child. I don't have any regrets other than hurting the person I was with. Story 27. Most of these relationships are over well before the cheating, to be honest. If you're in some hostile marriage for the children, and haven't had or even slept in the same room in the past 4 years, is it really the end of the marriage if one of you cheats? I'm not saying there aren't that ruin completely good relationships with dedicated, loving partners by cheating, but people make it sound like that's always the case. It's not. These are often shitty, dysfunctional relationships with no future that have clearly ended in all but name. So why cheat instead of ending it? Because making it official often sucks. You can lose a ton in divorce, including your house, might never see your kids again, etc. It's often more attractive to find a fulfilling relationship on the down low while maintaining the facade of a marriage that's keeping your life together. Life is messy and complicated, and there often aren't heroes and villains, victims and perpetrators. Things aren't as black and white as Reddit would prefer to believe. IN4 found the cheater. Story 28. I was in a long-term relationship with my ex. We moved across the country together, so I became very isolated and he was all I had. He had shown signs of being abusive before the move that I largely ignored because of Navit, but once we moved all broke loose. He was a massive alcoholic and extremely verbally abusive, and quite often physically to go with it. He would also often harm himself if I upset him, but I had no other friends or family there and my job did not pay enough for me to be on my own in a relatively HCL city. We also got rid of my car during the move as it was too old to make it across the country, so I was dependent on him for that too. I started becoming closer with people at work as they were my only escape from him. They unfortunately witnessed some of his insane behavior. He would stumble in there drunk fairly often, and I began to open up to them more about what I was going through, in particular, to one guy I worked with because he was always very realistic with me and a good listener. No boundaries were crossed for a long time. I didn't have feelings for him, we never texted about anything outside of work, we didn't hang out unless we were in a big group, etc. After almost a year of this friendship, I realized how bad things were with my ex and that he was going to kill me if I didn't get out. Around the same time, I realized my feelings for my coworker. And I just so happened to land a better paying job with benefits that would allow me more stability on my own, and was walkable from my apartment, so I tried to break up with my ex once and for all. It didn't work well. He threatened to kill himself. I ended up locking myself in the bedroom while he screamed and raged and attacked himself with a razor. It was incredibly traumatizing and I didn't know what to do. He refused to leave and I had nowhere else to go. Later that week was my last day at my old job, and so I went out with my coworkers to celebrate. My ex was, God knows, we're getting drunk. My coworker offered to drive me home, and when he dropped me off I asked him if he wanted to kiss me. He said yes, so we did. I ran into my apartment and told him I had made a huge mistake, and long story short it led to a confession from him that he had had feelings for me for a while but always wanted to respect my relationship and not cross boundaries. I ended up successfully ending things with my ex a few days later. It was horrific. He destroyed many of my belongings, punched holes in our doors, there was broken glass all over the apartment, he was threatening to kill me with a knife in his hand, and it was so loud multiple neighbors called the police. They showed up and he fled and never came back. I haven't seen him since. But I did start dating my old coworker, and I still am to this day. He was there for me through every step of the healing process, took things slow and gently, and ultimately has helped me get through so much trauma. He is an incredible partner who has never so much as raised his voice at me. He has made me believe in love again, and I hope to spend the rest of my life with him. Am I proud of cheating? Absolutely not. Am I glad I did it? Yes. The guilt of it was what gave me the final nudge to actually get rid of my ex. How ironic. I couldn't do it because G was abusing me, but when I felt too guilty to stay together. Does my partner worry he's going to lose me how he got me? No, he's not a terrifying, abusive piece of Story 29. Not me or my family. Someone I know cheated on his wife, divorced, stayed with the person that cheated with and have a whole new life. This all happened 20 years ago. Everyone has moved on. He, ex-wife, and current wife, the one who cheated with, get together for holidays and important life events for their adult children. Everyone is fairly amicable. Story 30. I was a kid, 18 years old. My then boyfriend and I had the pregnancy talk about what would happen if I got pregnant. He told me he would wait for me at the bottom of the stairs with a wire coat hanger. It was then I realized our relationship was over, but wasn't strong enough to end it. Eventually met a coworker and started to cheat. Story 31. I was bored, not happy in the relationship, but too lazy, too afraid, too content to break up, didn't receive any affection. An opportunity presented itself. Everything was suddenly so exciting, so novel. I took a stab at it. Worst case, I could always fall back to my existing relationship. Right, I should have broken up long before that, but I was, and well, still am, a coward. Story 32. At first, it was emotional. That was the dangerous part. I started comparing, I'd be with my partner but thinking about what that other person would say or do. Then it crossed a line one night, then another, and then it wasn't just a mistake anymore. It was a whole situation. Leaving was messy and it hurt everyone. I hated being the villain. But staying would have been worse. Looking back, I do regret parts of it, the way it happened, but leaving a relationship that wasn't right, that needed to happen. I just wish I'd done it cleaner. Story 33. I cheated on my girlfriend of 5 years with someone I started talking to online. I stayed in the relationship way too long and out of obligation. I was afraid of being alone, so I stayed even though I wasn't happy. My partner wasn't abusive or anything, just passive-aggressive often. I think I either fell out of love or interest, or simply depressed. But I slid into someone's DMs out of boredom and looking to flirt with someone new. We ended up hitting it off really fast. Even though they live on the other side of the world, I kept it from my partner for about 2 weeks until the guilt made me physically ill. I sat my partner down and put everything on the table, not holding a single detail behind. I felt like such for breaking the heart of someone I love. I'm still talking to the other person, and it's honestly going really well. I know I'm not a good person for this, and it's something I'll have to live with. Story 34. I had been dating a guy I met on Tinder for about a month, and then he had to go out of state for 3 months. Ended up meeting my now husband, and a few days later felt super bad about it and broke up with guy 1. I've been with my husband for almost a decade, but I still feel guilty about how it started. Story 35. He controlled every dime in that house. He used my kids as pawns and threats. I did it to get him to hate me, so he wouldn't be so insistent we stay together, and it was nice having someone actually care if I came, or smiled. Didn't work, went through the hard way. Story 36. I was unhappy and mistreated in the relationship. I met someone who made me feel seen during a time I was really insecure. I told my partner a month later after she confessed something that also hurt me, but she got angrier. I felt awful the days after I did it and realized I should have just left the relationship sooner. I know what I did was wrong and I vowed never to repeat it, and TBH, even if she treated me like she didn't deserve what I did to her. Story 37. I had been in a long-distance relationship, not knowing how unhealthy it was for me, my mental health. I had 2 relationships with 2 different men online. Both good men, booty up. I do regret it, but it also showed me that I wasn't ready for any relationship, so I've been just here, single, probably will be forever, and I don't mind. Story 38. I was earning 3 times his salary, so I am basically wearing the pants in our relationship. My ex was spending his money with all his wants, new gadgets and clothes. Basically his salary became his allowance. If he needed something, I will give him money, like when he needed a new phone, when he wanted to have brand new expensive clothes. I gave it to him without hesitation. This guy, who made me his sugar mom, had the audacity to verbally and physically abuse me whenever things won't go his way. I cheated on him with now my husband, who treated me way better than he could offer. I cheated on him with a man who has financial stability, which my ex never had. I am not proud that I cheated on him, but I am happily married now and my ex is still where I left him. I dodged a bullet. Story 39. I cheated simply because I used to be, frankly, a holy and only thought of myself. I tried to justify why I did it and tried to blame her, but in the end, I had control of my actions and knew what I was doing. I thought I needed more attention, more love and more affection, but all I did was break the heart of someone who supported me for 20 years. I should have manned up and just left instead of crushing her. I'll never forget what I've done and will forever be a cheater. I'm a far better person now and can 100% say I've changed, but it will never take back what I've done. I was 18 years old, I was being groomed by my dad. I got close with a coworker who offered for me to escape and live with him. My wouldn't let me leave unless I cheated on him and broke his heart. To this day I regret it. If I had just stuck it out until I graduated high school and we got our own place. He meant everything to me, but I had to get away from his dad. Story 40. He was emotionally abusive and very controlling. I was with him for 9 years and I loved him with all my heart. I loved him more than he loved me. I did all the work. He was a spoiled mama's boy. We were building a future together, but he refused to work. I was supporting him, working full-time while all he did was stay at home and play his guitar. He had weekend gigs but it didn't pay much. I took him on holidays and concerts and I would pay for everything. We got pregnant. He found a job but didn't last long. He quit after a few weeks because he didn't like working. When we had our baby, I wasn't even allowed to carry my baby. He wouldn't let me see my mom. Then his mom got sick and passed. And I tried to be there for him. I said to him that I understand what he was feeling because I lost my dad a few years before. He said to me that losing my dad was nothing compared to his grief because he lost both his parents, his dad when he was younger, and his mom recently. I left for another country, and he was meant to follow with our son a few months after. But I met someone else who made me see how terrible I was being treated, and it made it so much easier to cheat on him. I should have ended things with him before I started seeing my current partner. My current partner listens to me, asks me how my day is, does not walk away from me when we have arguments and works hard to support me and my son. He's the exact opposite of my ex that I cheated on and am glad I left that toxic abusive ex-partner. Story 41 never cheated on a partner, but I was once the person who the cheating was being done with. She left her boyfriend to be with me but I could never trust her knowing that she was willing to cheat and it only lasted a few months before she went back to him. I don't think he ever knew about me. They're married with kids now.